Hey guys, Booligan here with Booligan Shooting Sports, taking a quick look at a new firearm project that I acquired recently. This is an ATI GSG 522. It is a 22 caliber rimfire semi-automatic visual replica of an MP5. These used to be called the GSG 5, but H&K was having none of that and made them do some design changes on it to make it look less like an MP5 and made them change the name to the GSG 522. Really, the changes are purely cosmetic, and the entire function between the GSG 5 and the 522 is effectively identical. The changes mainly are due with the front sight is a different design, the grip, the lower receiver, the grip assembly is textured and has a different shape selector, just a couple of things like that. However, ATI put together a conversion kit, so you could actually purchase the kind of neutered GSG 522 and convert it back to the original GSG 5 specs, which included the correct charging handle, the top cocking assembly, the correct front sight, and the correct lower receiver, as well as a couple of other parts. These generally sold around like $300, a little bit more than that sometimes, and ultimately they were discontinued. However, they still exist. You can still find them. I picked this one up as new old stock from CDN Sports for about $300, which included the gun itself as well as the conversion kit, which is normally a $30 to $50 additional purchase. I have put those conversion kits on and made a couple of other changes as well. So this, I'll go over the changes, but this is a little different than what you would get if you just normally bought a GSG 522. So this is a rifle. As such, it has over a 16-inch barrel. On an MP5, that would obviously be very short. So this is hidden by a cosmetic fake suppressor. You can see the actual barrel is that steel guy in there, and this thing actually screws off, and you can see the elongated steel inner barrel, if you will. It's very similar to airsoft in that it has an inner and an external, or inner and an outer barrel. Everything on this one is metal. There are two versions. There's the normal version, and then there's the lightweight version. This is the normal version. The lightweight version has a polymer upper receiver. The normal version has a metal one. As such, this is heavy. It's actually kind of heavy. I think it's heavier than my 9mm AR, or my AR9, which is a pistol, the shorter barrel, but still. Interesting thing about this, a lot of these components are made to airsoft spec. I actually am under the belief that at least the casting design of the mold design of things like the upper receiver and the lower receiver was actually done by an airsoft factory. There are just way too many coincidences and way too many similarities for it really not to be. It works with airsoft furniture, airsoft handguards. Doesn't work with actual MP5 handguards. It requires airsoft spec ones because it's got these little ridges here that lock into that, just like on airsoft replicas. Normally, this has, that lined up, a screwed pin system, so the pins go in and they're screwed from both sides. As far as the changes, I guess we'll get to the changes that I've done on mine. Simple things first, obviously replaced all those with HK style pins because push pins are so much easier for disassembly, for cleaning. This thing is not the easiest to clean, so you want to do whatever you can to make that easier. I have also changed out the stock. The package that I bought came with a standard fixed stock as well as a chote style folding stock. Not a huge fan of either of those. I'm a big fan of the slider stock. And wouldn't you know it, this is a Cyma MP5 sliding stock. It's a little bit snug, and obviously at full extension they wobble. They all wobble, but it really works quite well and really gives you that MP5 look that you want. I have made a modification to that stock because on a normal MP5 the ejection port's a little bit higher. On this it's a little bit more flat there, and at full stock retraction, it actually goes to about here and blocks it so that you cannot fire it with the stock fully retracted. So did a quick change, chopped that off, smoothed it out, and now it can fire with the stock in all positions. So that's a modification that I did as well. I also swapped out the rear sight. Even with the conversion kit, the rear sight, it was still like a rotating drum assembly, but it didn't have the actual holes. It wasn't like a diopter style sight. It just had little, like a really tall V-notch, which gave you really no point of reference with the front sight and was just terrible to use. So got rid of that, didn't like it at all. I also purchased a claw mount. An airsoft claw mount worked fine. I think it was a Cyma claw mount, got it on Amazon. It worked fine, it's just not on here for this video, but it clamps on very well and really kind of makes the thing look great. Adds a lot of versatility and allows you to add like a scope or a red dot sight or something like that. So a little bit about the form and function, fit, and how this thing works and feels. It's really solid. The furniture is definitely kind of the low point, especially the handguard. But this, my inspection letter that was in my box with this indicated that this was made in, or was inspected in 2013 and sat on a shelf in like Pennsylvania for 7 years. They just didn't sell terribly well, especially when Umarex and H&K kind of made their own licensed rimfire 22 MP5 replicas. People wanted more of the actual H&K ones, but those were substantially more expensive than these. And like, I'm fine if there's these little ridges right here and it's a GSG. I don't care if it doesn't have an H&K logo. I actually think this is a little bit more discreet than the big gaudy H&K logo that's on the 22 caliber ones. And those are upwards of $500 and $600, which is just way too much for a 22 plinker. But yeah, the furniture isn't great. And I just attribute that to being old. It's kind of a little sticky, but I have a solution coming for that. I have a Surefire style illuminated handguard from GMP that's on the way, and I'm late to the game, and I'm pretty sure I bought the last one of those that's actually for sale. Should be showing up from Hong Kong any day now, theoretically. The magazines hold 22 rounds. Some people have experienced feeding issues with them. I haven't. Mine slide really smoothly. You can clean those up and lube up those tracks where the little kind of notches go that assist you with loading it if you have any feeding issues. But in my experience and in my testing with this, it fed perfectly. Reliability wise, rimfire replicas are always going to be a little bit iffy, or rimfire firearms, excuse me, can be a little bit iffy, mainly because rimfire ammo itself is notoriously unreliable. If the primer compound isn't exactly perfectly spread out throughout the base of that cartridge, you may hit a dead spot where it just doesn't fire right. The way that the bullet is actually retained in the casing, it's just, the bullet can wobble around, you can have some feeding issues. I didn't have any of that with this. I had two failed primer strikes, but I was also using Thunderbolt ammo. I was using like the cheap bulkest of the bulk. But really what you're going to want to do is make sure that this thing is kept clean, kept well lubricated, use high quality ammunition, and make sure that it's high velocity ammunition. It says that right on the side, high velocity. However, I did run some CCI standard velocity through it, and it really liked that. It ran perfect. Once this thing's broken in, 1,000 rounds or so later, I'm going to try running some subsonic ammo through it, just to see how that runs. And, I'm not holding my breath that it's necessarily going to work right, but we'll see. How to use this firearm. Pretty much just like an actual MP5. It's kind of awesome. We have an empty mag here. This does have a bolt hold open, so on empty it will lock back, which is going to kind of change things a little bit. So take that mag out. Normally what you do then is you would insert a mag, and of course you can HK slap this and get it loaded and ready to go. The other thing that it has is a magazine disconnect. It will not fire with the magazine removed. Don't pull a Joe Exotic and test that one out yourself with a live round in there. Hate to see an accident happen, but yeah, it does have a magazine disconnect. So when you are shooting it, you need to load it. Obviously, tuck that out a little bit so it's acting as if there's no magazine. and then you shoot, pop, 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 pop. When you are done, it will lock back, change your mag, cycle it, and then cycle the bullet handle again. Or if you feel like being really cool before changing it, you can lock that back and then give it a slap, because really you can't ever get tired of doing that. I'll probably get tired when it breaks and that charging handle goes flying off down the range somewhere. But in the meantime, man, that's just a lot of fun to do. So overall, as a plinker, as a range toy, this thing is a whole lot of fun. It costs pretty much like a tricked out Ruger 1022. Reliability wise, mine has been consistent with my 1022. I haven't seen any major issues with it, and that weren't caused by just some crappy cheap ammo. So keep it well fed and you're not going to have those problems most likely. Aftermarket compatibility, again, this is largely compatible with airsoft products, so airsoft stocks work really, really well. You can find F-style stocks like this, you can find normal A3 style stocks, you can find a wide variety of airsoft stocks that will work for this. Handguards as well, just make sure that it is airsoft spec, that it is designed to lock into those little notches. As far as upgrades and things that you should do, again, you're going to want to replace the pins to go to the HK style pins, replace the rear sight. It works so much better with an actual rear sight. I got both of those parts from HK Pro, and they got them to me relatively quickly. They're located here in Utah as well. The other upgrade that a lot of people do to these is called a screw kit, and I'll put a link for it in the information section of this video, but it replaces, we'll take a look really quick at the body here. So this is a clamshell body technically, like the airsoft replicas, and you see it's got screws here that are holding it together. These screws, there's little segments here that look like they'd have nuts on them. There's no nuts. They're just machine screws that are kind of cutting into the metal. There are similar ones in the trigger housing, and some people have reported that with repeated assembly and disassembly, those can easily strip out. So there's a company that sells a screw and nut assembly for basically all of those screws to replace it and just lock it up a little bit tighter. That is going to be on my list of things to do with this gun. The other thing that is on my list of things to do with this gun is to SBR it. Really, I can't be having this up here on the front. An MP5 is meant to have a short 8 or 9 inch barrel, and I will be doing that with e-file Form 1 times down to about 20 days. You're still paying that $200 tax stamp, which sucks when you're doing it on a $300 gun. But for about $500, having this as an SBR is a really, really sweet little package. So that will be happening soon. We'll be doing an updated video on that process, sort of my report on what the e-file Form 1 process is like, what you need to know, what pitfalls you may fall into, and we'll address sort of all of that stuff in that. But yeah, this is just sort of an introduction to this really, really fun project, and what we have in store for it in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for videos from the range as best as I can do with everything sort of in lockdown still. Yeah, if you want to build something like this, again, you can still find these new old stock at CDNN Sports, and then most of the other parts that I got to make it even more HK-ish, I got from HK Pro. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next steps on this very fun project.